Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Before we start, I just want to say that we're completely live. You can ask me questions through the comments. But I just want to test, I just want to make sure that the sound is working properly. It's kind of awkward being so far away from my audience. So if you can hear me properly, can you say or write one just to make sure that it's working properly? I'm reading on comments, so I just want to make sure that it's working. So I assume that it's working okay. So the first thing that I want to say is I want to thank you, the San Diego Coastal Rotary Club, for inviting me to share this opportunity. I'm really excited about. Can you guys see me? I'm not really sure if you guys can see me. Okay, I'm just asking everyone, can you see me properly? There's somebody mentioning that you cannot see me or my image. Is it working properly? Antes de que se me olvide, I just want to make sure that it's working properly before I proceed. Okay. Okay, so Jenny, I just want to let you know that everybody is watching live. Everybody that is connected at the moment is saying that they can hear me and they can see me. So I guess, Jenny, something that is happening on your end. So let's get started. And as I said, I just want to thank you, the San Diego Rotary Club, for this opportunity, and very especially to Jenny Parker for making this possible. I'm really excited to share my evolution as a photographer. The other thing that I want to mention is that if by any chance the whole thing goes black, right, like you don't see me anymore, just bear with me for a couple of seconds because I will be exchanging batteries. I'm connected, I have lots of lights around me, and you'll see some of the things that I'm gonna be doing, so I need energy, and if by any reason the whole thing goes away, that is the reason. So let's get started with this presentation. I'm really excited to be sharing this opportunity. So Jenny, I'm gonna disconnect my WhatsApp and I'll be connected through comments because otherwise it's a little distracting to me. So the first thing that I want to say is that this presentation is the presentation of an evolution, and it's not something that is connected with wildlife or with animals in any way. We're going to be talking about the evolution of my creativity and how I address all the life happenings in my career and how I adapted, how I use moments of not being very happy, many of the hazards down the road to be able to success in my field, something that is not very easy, and to ultimately create books that they've been donating around the world. So let's get started. I'll be navigating between a formal presentation. You're gonna see me in small. I hope that everybody can see me. So the most important thing is that you follow my presentation and you're gonna be seeing lots of work. You're gonna see most of my work during this presentation. And I just want to start with a quote by an Irish writer, George Bernard Shaw. Imagination is the beginning of creation. You imagine what you desire, you will what you imagine, and at last you create what you will. That's something that is very special, and that quote, I think it captures the essence of how I see creativity. Also, I want to say that if you see me looking at different places while I talk, it's not because I'm reading my notes or anything. It's because I'm looking for comments that you guys are asking live, or because I'm dealing with the presentation and the photographs. So you'll see that my eyes will not be fully frontally looking at you, but they will be switching back and forth. So let's start with my most challenging and rewarding project. This is something that I know Jenny knows that I present every time. It doesn't matter who is my audience. I always start with the hardest and the most difficult and challenging project I have always embarked on. But I just want to say that maybe it's not what you expect. But this particular project completely transformed my vision, how I see photography, how I see communication, and it's a tradition in everything that I touch. So this has been my most challenging project until today. Maybe you were expecting something else, but becoming a dad completely changed my perception of photography, completely changed how I storytell and all the projects that I become in. And you're going to have lots of chances to ask me questions. If you don't mind, we can leave the questions towards the end. My idea is to go through many different projects that I have been working on. And so let's get really started, okay? So hopefully this is going to work properly. So this is a hummingbird, and this is a hummingbird that I photographed in Colombia. So I want to start with a guess. How long do you think I used my Colombian residency? I was working in Colombia. I have a company that we run photo trips called Colombia Photo Expeditions. And then the pandemic started. So answering the question, let me tell you, the amount of days that I used my Colombian residency was 0 days. I was embarked on an expedition, and you're going to discover the story behind that expedition and all the things that got triggered by a happening that was nothing that I expected in my life. But I learned many lessons, and I will be sharing them with you. So I learned that as we transit through life, our camera becomes a witness of our living experiences. And this may sound a little awkward, but I came to the realization that with a camera, I'm doing nothing else but record a visual diary of my own existence. But it's not only me. Even yourselves, when you're using your phone, you're actually recording your own history. And this is something that many people forget. And there's a complete interrelationship between technology and our lives. If you think about it, we have a phone, an iPhone, a Galaxy, it doesn't matter the brand, but we're always connected with some piece of technology. And that piece of technology is completely intertwined with your life and my life. And if you think about it, it has become an extension of who we are. Just ask yourself, do you think you will be able to separate yourself completely from technology at this point? Actually, it will be almost impossible unless you live off the grid and you don't have a job and you're somewhere remotely. Because even this presentation, we're making it happen through technology. So the pandemic taught me some very interesting questions. And I just want to show you this photograph here. I got stuck in a trip in Patagonia and I was never able to return home. This may sound a little strange, but it's the reality of my life. I was completely devastated. All the borders started shutting down. I got stuck in the middle of the ocean next to Patagonia, and my life changed. It changed so much that I have still not returned to the house that I had before the pandemic, that most of my gear is still on the opposite side of the world. But I learned so many things. And it's very interesting. The photograph that you can see on the screen is when I was able to return. Obviously, it was the beginning of the pandemic and nobody knew what the virus meant or how we could get contagious or how we could spread it. So I was very careful, and for almost 7 days or 10 days, I camped outside a patio in a temporary home in Florida, in the outside of Tampa. So this photograph was taken from the inside of the house, and it was the first contact that I had with my daughter. As you see, I was wearing gloves. I completely spread all my belongings in the floor, on top of the floor, sorry, and I stayed there for almost a week. They fed me like opening a door, they left the food outside, and it was so challenging up to the point that I celebrated my birthdays, my daughter's birthdays from the outside. I know now we have more information, there's vaccines, and the whole world sees this whole thing in a different way. But in that moment of time, and being a very responsible person, that is the choice that I made. But I learned so many things about life and about photography. For example, I'm going to show you the photographs I've taken with my phone that they have been published the most around the world. And probably it's not what you expect. And that's what I learned, what I was trying to tell you, that sometimes just by having a phone, you're recording history and you never know the underlying story of what you're documenting. There's something that I talk about on a regular basis, is the life of a photograph. You photograph somebody, but that somebody may not be there in the future, and you could actually be recording the only photographs of that person when he's still alive. And that has happened to me many, many times. So these are the photographs, not to my pride, because they're not the best photographs, but I'm going to explain you the topic behind them. When I returned and I landed in Miami after like a long ordeal, right, I documented the whole thing with my phone. I took videos, I took photographs, and when I landed at the airport, there was absolutely no single human around. There was nobody to rent cars. Finally, I was able to rent a car by Hertz. But then they went bankrupt. So all my photographs, and this is just a tiny sample, they were published all over the world. They published in Fortune, they were published, I think, in the Wall Street Journal, all over the world. So if you see my point and the lesson that I learned, always document everything that is happening in your life, because you never know the value of that content. And also because when we're living through experiences, we don't realize how important is the value of those visual contents. But let's move on, because I have so many things that I want to share with you. So this presentation is the story. I hope you're enjoying. It's kind of awkward not to be seeing your faces, but remember you can leave comments and I'm going to be reading everything that you say. This presentation is the story of a child, somebody that dreamed about exploring the world, and that was my obsession. I wanted to become an explorer. But before I give you more details, I just want you to understand that this presentation tries to build the connections between photography and all the happenings in my life. But I don't want you to enjoy my actual work or all the stories that I'm going to be sharing with you. I want you to think about your own experiences in life and how can you relate to all the things that I'm sharing with you. So I'm going to start with this work. Normally when I'm doing a keynote presentation, it's much easier. So here I have to navigate back and forward, but hopefully everybody's looking. Can everybody see okay? Can you leave a comment just to make sure that everything is working properly? And let's look at the beginning of my work, that period of time that I refer to as the dreamer. Antes de que se me olvide, so as you can see, my work has taken me all over the world, but I just want to say hello to everybody that has joined. Hello, Bob, April. I'm really glad that you like music. Actually, I'm learning to play piano. I started 2 years ago, so I'm obsessed with music, and all my presentations include music. And actually, at the end of this presentation, I'm going to be showing a small song that I wrote, but also the arranger and the person that helped me elevate that music, I believe he's with us today. And if he had to leave, I'm going to be interviewing him tomorrow live on this YouTube channel. Wendy, so nice to see you. Fantastic. I'm so happy. I never thought that the power of the internet could work so well. So what I want to say about these photographs that you have seen is the fact that many of them, they were taken with slides. I'm about to be 50 years old soon, so my career started when I was 17. So all these images you've seen, they were with slides. They were taken with rolls of film of 36. The older generation looking at us right now will understand what I mean. So there's lots of effort. Every time that I was photographing a great white shark on the water, I had to swim all the way to the shark, photograph, swim back, remove the film, and start the whole process again. So besides, uh, yes. So Jenny, I'm holding that question that you're asking me here, uh, and you're asking is if all this beauty make me become an environmental activist, or it was the birth of my daughter. So I would say it's a combination of everything. And as we move forward in this presentation, I will be sharing more of the insights of the happenings in my life. And I have to say that I presented Pili as the main project that launched the adventures of Pili. But to be fair, I already have another daughter. Her name is Luna and was born 7 weeks ago. So now I have to redo this presentation because I not only have one princess that inspired me to write children books and donate them around the world, actually I have now two. But the interesting thing about this presentation and why I decided to call it evolution is because I was living in Panama for almost 4 years, and I had an incident that I was followed by two cars all the way to my home, and they stole every single piece of equipment that I owned until that moment. This was absolutely traumatic. I say it with a smile on my face, but it was a quite expensive year because the insurance did not cover, but also uh, because I had to make very drastic decisions whether to rebuy the whole thing that I've been buying for years or start slowly. And it was an inflection point in my career. Actually, I had to rethink my career as an overall. And I started developing a new value system. And I wrote about this idea that is actually, hello, Janet. Very nice to see you here. And I started to embrace what is called the wabi-sabi philosophy in Japan. I don't know if you heard about it, but basically it's the concept that nothing lasts, nothing is finished, and nothing is perfect. So I came to the realization is that yes, I could own all the cameras in the world, all the underwater gear, but in reality, the difference and the real difference in everything that I do, and you do yourself too, is not the gear that you're using, but who you are as an individual, or those life experiences that they have become, make you become an individual, a unique individual with a soul, heart, and so I'm back. You see, I had to change my battery. I don't know why that keeps happening when I'm doing lives, but I have plenty of batteries and hopefully everything is gonna work fine and I'm charging it again. This is what happens when you're doing live presentations over the internet. How amazing is that, huh? So yes, that's what I learned with all this experience. But let me show you more of my work, right? But I want to add something that is quite interesting. I've been lucky enough to be working in more than, I don't know, like 80, 90 countries by now with many repeats. But there's something very interesting. After all my gear was stolen um, in Panama and I bought everything, yes, Nick, I'm back. um, after all my equipment was stolen, let me tell you that I bought everything brand new. I bought the top lenses, the top cameras, everything that I could afford, or actually I used many of my resources to be back in the game. And I was working on an expedition in the Amazon, and we hit a log in the middle of the night, and we actually sank. So all that brand equipment that I was mentioning and that I was referring to went to the bottom of the Amazon River, and I never used it at all. So you can imagine how that affected my career, and still, I made it, and I'm here to share all these stories. But let's continue with the presentation, because I want to tell you, I want to share you where did everything began. So let me tell you that I was born. Uh, Hola Irene, qué gusto tenerte. So somebody's joining from Panama. So hello Irene, ¿cómo estás? And I just want to share a little bit of the work that I did for the International Expo in Spain in 2008. But more than sharing my own work, I just want to share you where do I come from, my upbringing, my education, my character. Many of you that have traveled with me, Jenny, Bob, I'm a very passionate person, a very lively person. I'm very thankful with life and all the opportunities that I'm given, and I always try to give back. So I'm gonna show you my hometown, Spain, but it's gonna be a different kind of photography. I went into most, or not most, but many of the rivers in my hometown, and I photographed them in a way that nobody had done back then. I went into the rivers, in the mountains, in the Pyrenees, to capture a different view of the place that I was born. And it became an official book, a 300-page book in 3 languages that was given to presidents from around the world and to different celebrities. So let me show you, and hopefully it's gonna work properly. And remember, you can ask any questions. Actually, I see there's a slight delay, so you can leave the question, and as soon as I get the opportunity, I will answer them. But let's go with my hometown, Spain. Because one of the things that I always tell people is not so much the gear that we're using, but the perception that we have of the surrounding and all nature and spaces around us. That is the real So that's where I come from, Zaragoza. It's a Roman city. It was created by the Roman Emperor Caesar Augusto. And for those of you that you like art, in a small town near Zaragoza, Fuendetodos, it was the place that Goya, the famous painter, was born. But let's proceed, and I hope you're having fun. It's kind of interesting to be having this audience and being able to interact with you through comments, and it's quite fantastic. So I hope that you're enjoying as much as I do. If I go black again, I mean, if the whole thing disappears, it goes blank. Uh, please bear with me a couple of seconds until I change batteries, and we will be back in the game. So no need to disconnect. And I'm going to be talking right now to another period of my life. For those of you that you like the ocean, you may be familiar with Jean-Michel Cousteau and actually his father, Jacques Cousteau, and the Calypso. When I grew up in Spain, there were only two TV channels, the one and the two, La Primera y La Segunda. So always after lunch, I think it was around 2 or 3 or 1, I don't remember properly, but around that time, they share the episodes of the adventures of the Calypso, the ship that was used by Jacques Cousteau to explore the world. That concept of being able to go into wild and remote places and inspire audiences and share information trigger my imagination all the way till today. And that's where I'm doing right now. I'm inspiring people around the world with my work and with other interesting things and projects that I'm actually developing, and I'm going to be sharing them with you. So in this time that we didn't have internet, the way that I gather information from around the world is I used to send letters to all these places. When you saw an advertising, an ad in a magazine, on one of the sides in very small letter, you could see an address. If you sent a letter to that media department or press department, they will actually send you a press package. So I was a young boy and I was receiving these packages that normally they were sent to media and journalists around the world. And that's how I got to discover what was happening around the world. And in one of these occasions, I said, okay, I need to contact Jacques Cousteau, which, by the way, was one of the inventors of the aqualung, the scuba tanks that we use today in scuba diving. So together with somebody else, Jacques Cousteau was one of the inventors. So that's pretty awesome. So he used to be based in the Oceanographic Museum in Monaco. And I sent a letter addressed to the Oceanographic Museum in Monaco with the question to Dear Jacques Cousteau, what do I need to do to become an explorer? Obviously, that question was never answered, probably because as a kid, I didn't have the right address, or who knows, they didn't care about this kid in Spain. But when I grew up and I published my first book called Habitats, I reached out to his son, Jean-Michel Cousteau, and I said, Jean-Michel, when I was a kid, I wrote to your dad and he never got back to me. So if you feel my work is good enough, it would be fantastic if you wrote the foreword of my upcoming book, Habitats. So he actually wrote that foreword together with David Dubillet, one of the iconic photographers in National Geographic for many years, and actually he's still an icon today. So that's how the whole thing happened. But let me show you a little more about my work. But there's something sad that happened in my life, and I'm gonna say it with a smile because I'm looking at my father, the person that taught me many of my life lessons. He was a famous radio personality back home, and probably my character, my way of addressing an audience, my passion for communication comes from him. When I was a kid, as I said, I was obsessed with exploring the world. That's what I wanted, become an explorer. I was fascinated with Indiana Jones, this character that had the ability to go to the middle of the nowhere in the jungle, go on an archaeological expedition, but then return to civilization and be able to go on stage and teach and share and inspire. So that fantasy character, Indiana Jones, and even that song was in my head the first time I traveled to Morocco. So when I was going through Fez and the old streets of Morocco, in the back of my head, I could listen tan 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 so much because that character of fiction inspired me to do what I do in a way with Jacques Cousteau and many others. But then something changed, and I decided that I wanted to be a stockbroker. Don't ask me why, but something happened when I was growing up, and I had a passion for the stock market. I was reading books. Maybe I saw the movie The Wall Street. I don't know. But that's something that I wanted to do. So I started studying economics. Actually, I graduated. One of my degrees is in economics from University of Zaragoza, even though it took me like 6 years to pick up my diploma. But the knowledge has been interesting and useful. But when I was in, I think, first year in my career, my father, this radio personality that I used to listen every morning when I went to school in the bus, I would listen his voice in the radio interviewing very famous people. And he was diagnosed with cancer. That completely transformed my family, my existence, and the direction of my life. So I completely lost interest in anything that was related to money, economics, investing at the time. And I stopped everything that I was doing. I stopped studying for a year, and I was with him until he sadly passed away. But I promised him that I was going to graduate with a degree in economics. And actually, I did. And I'm now even thinking that there was one time that I was sleeping in the floor of the hospital and I couldn't make it to an exam. And this I have never shared in my presentations, but I don't know. Being at home in the privacy, even though you guys are watching, is making me talk. There was this professor that probably he will remember me today, because when I went to his office, I was not very polite. I begged to have my exam changed so I could be with my dad through some harsh times, and he did not change my exam, and I failed because I never presented. So I gave a very blunt response that I'm not very proud of, but it's what it came from my heart back then. And I basically said, you're a human, and one day you may be in my situation. And I left. There's a Colombian, or actually a Spanish expression that says, arrieros somos y en el camino nos encontraremos, which basically stands for, arrieros are the guys, the carriers that used to walk around Colombia and the mountains in many countries with mules doing deliveries and mail. And basically you will find them sooner or later on the off trails. So that was a sad incident. But let's move forward with more fun things. So that's why I chose to pick up a camera and explore the world. And these are some of the images that I started producing. I don't know how I managed to finance all these trips. I come from a regular family, so it was more creativity and imagination than anything else. So this is the work that I was producing after my father's death many years ago now, when I was in my 20s. I graduated, as I said, but I embarked on a mission to go around the world exploring everything that had to do with wildlife. There's no human in my photographs because I was not interested in humans. I was using photography to cope with my own and new reality. So I hope all of you are enjoying uh, this presentation. And before I forget, I just want to invite all of you to sign up and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm incorporating live interviews both in English and Spanish on a regular basis, and I bring very interesting characters. Some people that have come uh, to my show called Reflections with an Accent. You guess why? Because I do have an accent. What can I do? I have interviewed Wade Davis, Akiko Iwasaki, an expert on COVID, Patricia Wright, that has discovered different species of lemurs and was behind the creation of some unique places in Madagascar. Wade Davis, the anthropologist, Carl Safina, the best-selling author from the New York Times. So yeah, I invite you to sign up so we can keep in touch when this presentation is over. But let's continue because I'm having lots of fun, and I hope you are having lots of fun too. And my life took a different direction. I graduated from economics, as I said, and life took me to somewhere that was completely. And Wendy is saying that she was in Zaragoza and she drove through. But let me tell you something, Wendy. This is very interesting because many people go through Zaragoza, but they never stop, and it's a beautiful uh, city to explore. So I got a scholarship, and I ended up at the University of Idaho. Actually, I was just talking with Sam Ham a few minutes ago, who wrote one of the best books about environmental interpretation, and he happened to be my teacher for a few classes. So my whole world completely changed on arrival to the United States, and I ended up working at the United Nations as an internship. So the interesting thing is that I graduated with a degree in economics. I studied 5 years of economics back in Spain, something that I was actually very interesting and brought me so much knowledge, even though I didn't quite enjoy it back then. But also I graduated with a degree in mass media and communications. And I ended up at the University of Idaho, and then I applied to work and be an intern at the United Nations. I never thought I would actually be accepted, but I did. And I moved all the way from Idaho all the way to New York City. And the most important thing about that transition is that I had no money because this was an unpaid internship. So the way that I financed my time in New York in my 20s was to prepare an exhibition at the university and sell my work. The funny thing here is that that work that I was producing back then was pretty bad, which makes me think that there's lots of people around the world that have a very good heart. Many people that I have crossed paths in my life and in my career, and they have made possible for me to be here and to be influencing the world and uh, spreading the message. Nick is sharing that. Yes, Nick, I'm absolutely passionate about what I do. That's me as an individual. In every part of my life, that's what I do. I breathe passion and gratitude, and every day more and more and more. But there's many things that happen. I was an editor at the Associated Press. Actually, when Ricky Martin performed in New York, I was there. There's so many things that I documented in the city. But let's move on. My whole career took a different direction. So when I started becoming adapted to this reality of having lost my father, uh, which I still think about him every day, and I wish he could be present to see what I do. Hopefully, he's watching from above. I started to understand the act of making a photograph, and it is basically a moment of discovery, right? It's a physical act that, when done properly, can have a strong impact on others. And this is something that I want to reinforce, this idea. When we take a photograph, we're creating and we're grabbing a moment that we go through and we put it out there to the world for other people to appreciate. So we can bring attention to places, locations, or happenings. And that is something very important. I became very, very aware of all these things. And I want to show you some work that I started producing back then. These were photographed in different places, mostly in Panama. And you will see that my work completely changed. It became something very different. This is work from the Galapagos Islands, but I'm gonna skip this because I have so many things that I want to share with you, and I don't want this to take forever. I don't know how long we've been talking now, but probably quite a few minutes by now. And then the internet came, and everything changed completely. The conversation was no longer unidirectional, right? It was not only uh, me sending messages one direction with my camera. There was a conversation. There's still a conversation. And that's what I have embraced social media and Instagram and Facebook. You can find me on all those places because I feel it's good to be connected to people, to listen to them, but also to share my experiences so they can reflect upon nature and what we're doing to our world. So let me show you some work that I produced, and it represents this new area that I was doing work completely different, and now the human figure is present in my work, as you will see. But the photographic style is completely different from what you've seen until now. So at this point in my career, I've learned several lessons that I want to share with you, and I hope everybody is having fun and enjoying this presentation. And I just want to thank you to the San Diego Coastal Rotary Club to making this presentation possible and inviting me to share my career and my creativity. It's much appreciated. The first thing that I learned is perseverance. Remember that I told you that I was at the University of Idaho, so somebody gave me a contact in New York, and this person that I was given the contact to is somebody that is very well connected in the photo industry. He was the founder of Saba Press, an agency, and actually he runs an agency today called Redux, Marcel Saba. So I landed in New York as a very young photographer, thinking that I was the best photographer on earth. which I was not, but obviously I had to believe in it, so I could make it happen one day. So I had a portfolio review, and I remember that I entered his office uh, with my images, not many at the time, and I said, "Hey, Marcel, this is my work. I would like you to represent my work." And I don't know if he remembers this incident, but I do. And he told me. I sat down and he told me, Kike, thank you so much for bringing me your portfolio. Come back in 10 years. And this is a true story. He completely broke my heart in that moment in time. But the interesting thing is that not 10 years later, but I think 15, I returned, and now Marcel and his agency, they represent uh, my work. So I learned perseverance. Sometimes our dreams, they don't happen at once. Sometimes the things we want to achieve, they take time, and the universe needs to align the stars. You need to have the background, the time, the money, the support, so many things. But mostly you need to have the will and yeah, yeah. These batteries are running out so quickly. I don't know why. Um, so that's what I learned. I learned that we need to be perseverant. I also learned that we have our own path, meaning that maybe you like my work with classic ballerinas, the type of work that I produce, but still you have to find your own voice in photography or in storytelling or in anything that you do in life. You cannot copy somebody else because they're already taken. So yes, we need to be inspired by other human beings, but we don't need to copy and try to follow their paths in life because each of us is unique and special. The other thing is that each master has its own book of tricks, meaning that when I'm teaching my students and people that attend my presentations around the world, uh, I share my experiences, but if you're doing photography in a particular way and it's working for you, go for it. Nobody knows everything. These are just lessons that I've learned, and I'm happy to share them. Um, yes. So Jenny is asking about the idea of the using of drones. Absolutely, Jenny. If you bear with me a little bit, I'll move quickly. But yes, I was kind of a precursor in the use of drones in art and technology, and I will talk about it. So yes, don't believe everything that you see. Like you always have to question everything, and that's what I do. And I started working for the New York Times. I did many assignments back in time. I traveled to different countries, mostly in Latin America. And there's an interesting story, and is that I dropped my portfolio and talking about perseverance before, and whoever was the editor back then in travel, I think I don't remember the name. It doesn't matter. But basically, I dropped my portfolio and I was reached by email, I think, and they told me that I was not good enough to shoot for the New York Times, and that was pretty traumatic because I was so excited about that opportunity. So I was kind of upset with myself or with the response, and I left my portfolio over there for many weeks. I would say almost months. And one day, walking around Times Square, I said, "Well, I should recover that portfolio that was quite expensive to produce." So I called. Somebody answered. The person that had rejected me was on maternity leave, I think. And the other person said, "Come up." And I went up, and that person liked my work, and I started doing assignments in different places around the world. So let me show you, if you've seen or you read the Times and you saw some of the 36 hours articles that came on Sundays. I did quite a few of them, and let me show you some of that work. So that's a sample of what I did for the New York Times, and it's amazing, this technology. I hope you're seeing your own comments here on screen. That's why I'm looking all these directions, because I'm controlling everything live as we go on. So Jenny, allow me a few more minutes and I will get on the drone topic, but I want to answer Nick when he's asking if I enjoy producing commercial photographs uh, or I'm more of an artist. So that's a very interesting question, because like everybody else, not everybody, but with like many people out there, I need to work, right? So in order to make a living, I have done projects for corporations and NGOs around the world, uh, which has been very fun. What I can tell you, Nick, and all of you that are watching, and I hope you're enjoying, is that today I only embark on projects that fill my heart and my soul. I get approached about doing different kind of photography or for companies, and and I'm lucky enough that I can devote my creativity and my artist soul to produce work that is meaningful, and that for me is very, very important. So I'm obsessed with the unbalanced world we live in, and all the environmental uh, uh, things that are happening around the world. So answering your question, Nick, I'm an artist at heart. I always been. That was a complex thing when I started my career, because I had to shoot and produce work that was not of my liking back then. But today I only work on things that I consider beautiful or important uh, to tell. But let's continue. So I work for the New York Times, and I learned two lessons here. Obviously, that we always need to knock on a door for a second time. Obviously, otherwise I would have never joined the New York Times back then. But I also learned something that is very, very important, and is the fact that the technical aspect of photography can be learned. But each of us, as I mentioned before, we are special. You guys that are watching me, you're special. You have your own sense of humor, your own passions, your own perceptions of reality, and that is very, very important. And I learned that in my career, beyond photography and my ability to capture all the things around me, is what I brought to the table. My sense of humor, uh, my appreciation, my gratitude, and obviously my expertise and all those things. That's obviously something that is needed. But I learned there's a human element, a human aspect to every career, and I think that makes people excel in what they do. Only when we love what we do, we become good at it. So when younger people ask me, what do I need to do to become a photographer? I would say you need to love and desire with all your heart. Uh, you have to work very hard too, uh, but you need to be aware that you're a human besides being a professional. That's something that many people they forget down the road. So let me show you. I'm gonna show you some of the work that I produced in Cuba, but actually, I'm gonna skip the order. Well, actually, I was gonna skip it, but because this is a pre-recorded keynote presentation, I cannot alter it. So I'm gonna follow it so the whole thing doesn't become a mess. So Jenny, thank you for your patience. So this work was produced in Cuba, and I started leading some of the first National Geographic trips to Cuba. Many of them. Um, I think I wouldn't say I'm an expert in Cuba. Maybe I am. I learned and I photographed pretty much the whole country since the late 90s when I was very young. So these guys, or these photographers you're about to see on the screen, these are the photographers of the Cuban Revolution. And for a very long time, I went to their homes and their studios, and I interviewed them, and I recorded and I photographed them with their masterpieces. So I recorded the history of Cuba through the photographers. So let's take a quick look about this work. So that's my work in Cuba. And remember, I was talking about the life of a photograph that you never know. Some of these photographers, they're no longer with us. So my photographs and my interview, they have become historical and I guess a record of some of the incidents that happened in Cuba. And now I want to share my all-time favorite. This is my project of love. I have been working on it for years. And it all started with an advertising campaign in Panama. I was invited to photograph the National Ballet of Panama. Not invited, I was asked or hired. And the idea that they wanted was to photograph ballerinas indoors. The idea was to photograph dancers, both male and female, on stage. And I rejected that offer, and I said I will do this project only and only if I'm given full creative freedom to be able to capture how I envision ballet. And this was the beginning of a project called World of Dances that has been showcased in some books of National Geographic. I think a photograph show up was published on the book Women. If anybody has the book, stunning photographs by National Geographic, and it was even on display, one of the photographs at the Museum of Modern Art in Panama. So it's been collected quite a bit, and recently Wade Davis really liked this work, and he has a couple of my prints like this one that you see here. But let me show you this work because it's something that is ongoing. It was never finished in the sense that I'm still producing work. And I just love it. It's the documentation of dancers in places that are environmentally being threatened or changed or changing. And these buses in Panama called Diablos Rojos, Red Devils, they're not there anymore, which means that this photograph has a historical value of the Panamanian culture, besides having six ballerinas of the National Ballet on top. So they're beautiful photographs that people collect all over the world, but there's a story behind each of the photographs. So let me show you this work really quickly. And I'm so happy that all of you are enjoying this presentation. So, as I said, that's one of my favorite projects I have been working on. And I was asking you if you want me to continue sharing a little more, or you want me to end it here. I have a couple of things, additional things that I would like to share. So let's continue because I see people are still connected. So that is fantastic. Uh, and Jenny Parker, uh, with whom I was lucky enough to be able to travel in the Amazon recently with National Geographic Expedition, and we will be traveling in the future again. She was asking and suggesting that I talk about my relationship with drones. So uh, I began at the minute zero of the industry. It was a very interesting story because I attended a conference in New York City. It was the first drone conference where brought all the brands and all the authors involved, and I became acquainted with brands like DJI that at that time was not as huge as it is today. So when everybody was seeing drones for their military value and their threat to privacy, um, I think the reason that one of the almanacs of National Geographic spoke about me, and they devoted 2 pages to talk about my drone work, uh, was the fact that I was a visionary. Actually, Thomas Lovejoy, the great conservationist whom uh, passed away recently, uh, he was such a great mentor to me. We met in traveling in Patagonia, and he always supported. He knew I was not a scientist, but he always supported my passion. So he wrote the foreword of one of my first books on drones. I have 2 books on drones. One is called "So You Want to Create Maps Using Drones," and the other one is called Drones for Conservation. An interesting thing is that actually the US Coast Guard, a particular branch that deals with training, has reached out to me recently, and they're just saying that they're going to be using my books for educational projects and training. So that's a compliment. But Thomas Lovejoy basically wrote on that foreword. I don't want to call him because I'm not going to do it properly, but basically he said that my book was a first, in the sense that I was a visionary of being able to use technology for both conservation and art. And when everybody was thinking about privacy, I was seeing the possibilities and all the amazing things we could do with this technology if they were used properly. And actually, before I forget, so if somebody wants to get a hold of any of my books, there's a QR code. You see how amazing technology, we can do all these things. So if you're watching this on a laptop, you could actually scan this with your phone, with your iPhone, and it will take you to my Amazon page. So if anybody wants to buy these books on drones or any other of the books regarding the children books, it will be there. This recording is going to be up for a few days, so people that have missed this opportunity, they can still watch it. So Jenny, I'm going to dedicate these upcoming photographs to you for making this presentation possible and inviting me to chat. The whole concept, this was photographed in the National Park of Tortuguero, in a place that is full of sharks that you're not supposed to be in the water, with the mom of one of the dancers around, seeing how her daughter and the friend were being smashed by the waves. And in a time that technology was not good enough. So these were the first drones out there, so much that it was so hot in the air that the batteries go bloated and I couldn't bring them back. But this is my work with drones, and this first sketch, if you want to call it that way, was the idea to recreate the concept of birth. You're going to see that these are like photographic notes as I advance. This took many hours to produce until I reached the two photographs that I feel capture what I had in my mind, and I will probably stop when we see them and explain them why. And this particular photograph is what I had in my mind, and I hope everybody is listening properly. If you see this photograph, actually what it captures is a moment created by nature. There's no retouching. This is a slow shutter speed photograph taken from the air with the early technology where everything was custom made, because now you can buy a drone and it will do everything for you. In those days, I learned how to fly manually, and I needed to do everything, or anything needed to be pre-programmed. But this idea is recreating the umbilical cord. Is the concept of a baby in the womb. So there are two dancers interconnected with nature. Many people like this photograph, and it's been bought before for collections and for decoration. And it's one of those special moments that it just happened. This is one of them. So let me show it to you, and then I'll stop again to show you more. And also, this happened. Now you cannot see it very well, but when I zoom in, you will be able to see. This was a blanket made out of waves. So basically, the ocean and the energy of the ocean and the tides engulf the two dancers, and as if they were sleeping on a mattress made out of sand and a blanket made out of waves. So that's what I had in my mind. And after many, many hours, and with the help of these two dancers, we were able to do it. So as I was describing, and I'm glad you guys are having fun, because I am having lots of fun too. I was living in Colombia before the pandemic. Very soon I'll be back with several groups of travelers that will be coming with my company called Colombia Photo Expeditions. If anybody wants to look for it, it's colombiaphotoexpeditions.com. And this is the type of work that I've been producing in Colombia. I just published an anthropological book about an indigenous celebration about the Corpus Christi in a place that has not been really documented. The foreword is by Wade Davis. And next year, I will be leading a group, a very small group of lucky travelers, to follow the steps of how I made that book possible. Maybe one day I'll share it so you can see. So this is Colombia, and this is the work that I produced there. So that's a little bit of my work in Colombia, and we're coming to an end here, but I beg or I suggest you stay, because I'm going to be sharing a couple of things that I think you will enjoy quite a bit before. These cameras, you have to deal with them. Um, I was just saying that if you guys have any questions you want to ask me, because there's a delay from the time that you write the question all the way until I get to see it and share with all of you. If you want me to answer some questions towards the end, I think it would be nice if you start sharing them now through the chat. Um, so this, what I'm about to share, this is a very sad project that I was working on. We were called, I think it was the Peruvian military, because there was a pink dolphin that was tied up in a canoe in the Amazon, and we went to the rescue. So you see, these images that you're about to see, they're really, really far from how I started. There's lots of meaning and lots of, how would I describe it, heart behind every story that I get involved. So this is the story with that pink dolphin and its rescue. You're seeing a 1-week-old baby pink dolphin, still gray when it's a baby, that was being tied up inside a canoe to be sold, I don't know to whom. We came to the rescue, and it was a very long process, very long ride. This was inside a truck. We created this small pool with water, and dolphins only breathe if they want to. So if they choose to stop, they stop breathing. The mom was around for a week before he decided to leave the baby, possibly thinking that there was nothing to do. And very sad, this baby pink dolphin died just a few minutes before we reached our rescue center in Iquitos. So you see, photography can be used to tell happy stories and sad stories and so many things in between. And I want to talk now, because we're coming to an end, about one of my favorite projects. I've been lucky enough to have been awarded with a Safina Center Fellowship 3 years in a row. And the project that I decided to embark on was, or is actually, the adventures of Pili, right? And the Adventures of Pili is a very special project and very close to my heart. Jenny was asking me what did inspire me to write children books. There's more than 14 now that they've been written in the last 2 years and a half. And they have been translated to Japanese, Chinese. My most recent achievement has been the distribution of these books in English, Ukrainian to refugees in University of Lodz in Poland, and also directly in different places. So I'm very happy. This is a project of love, which mission is to inspire kids to aspire. I want children to have that life flame that I have inside me that has driven all my career and everything that I touch and I do. All the books intend to inspire young girls, empower girls, because the main character, Pili, is inspiring my daughter, Pilar, who is 7 years old right now. And there's so many adventures, bedtime stories, books about children with disabilities. That book that you see on top, The Flight of a Flightless Mosquito, I wrote that book when I was 10 years old. It was a class assignment. It was the story that I wrote for one of the teachers, and during the pandemic, I rescued that paper and I turned it into a book. Actually, inside the book, not only you find photographs of weird things that normally we don't see, like spider eyes and things like that, but there's the original manuscript that I wrote with a typewriter when I was 10. So all my books are very personal, and there's lots of people around the world that are buying them and they're giving them to friends, to children, because we've been donating thousands of books around the world, always in remote communities and in remote uh, places. So some of you have asked through WhatsApp, how can you donate? How can you help? And I will address this obviously by giving our books. That's one of the first ways. The other thing that you can do is by scanning this QR code, you can go to the page of the Adventures of Pili and discover everything that is behind this beautiful project. The books can be bought here, scanning this QR code, and that will take you to Amazon. And we have bilingual books in Arabic. Recently, the only Arabic American museum in the US has been using our books in a story time that was done 2 weeks ago. We have donated books to kids with cancer, cognitive disability, and always in very remote places. That's the condition. In order for us to help, it has to be in a place that is very, very difficult to reach, sometimes days to get there. And as I said, during the pandemic, I was learning music and I started hearing this song in my head. And this is when this presentation becomes fun. I don't know if Enzo de Rosa is still watching and you're still around, Enzo, but he's an amazing musician. So the way it happened is I was working on the Adventures of Pili, and during the pandemic, I wrote maybe more than 10 books. I was completely isolated from the world, and that's what I did. Creativity came to the rescue, and thanks to writing children books, I was able to survive some of the hardest moments we have experienced as a family. And now what I'm about to show you is connected to music. This is the song that I came with. I'm not a musician. I learned basic music and I wrote a basic score. And I want to show you this song and hopefully you will enjoy it. This violinist is playing in Georgia. So that's the song that I wrote, a very basic piece for piano with the help of my teacher Alicia Campastro in Argentina. But then magic started happening. There's an official version that I'm gonna share you in a couple of minutes that was arranged by Enzo de Rosa, an amazing Italian musician. But musicians from around the world, they send me their versions from different places, from Brazil, from Romania, from Afghanistan, from Spain. I just want to share you some of these musics because I was so surprised that people are willing to help and the concept of the universality of music. So this came from Pakistan. But there's more versions. This one came from Romania. playing the accordion. And the other interesting thing about these songs is that if you ask Alexa to play the song Un Recuerdo para el Mañana, which stands for A Memory for Tomorrow, you can actually find this song on Amazon Music. So this is the song that was sent, the version that was sent from Romania. And I'm almost done here, but I have another surprise. This one was done by fellow alumni from Yale University, friends of ours, and it was performed by the Quarantine Bears, a group of scientists that created a group as they were stuck during the pandemic, and they did their own version of the Adventures of Pili's song Un Recuerdo para el Mañana.
Hi, we're the Quarantine Bears. I'm Strummy Bear here in China playing the electric guitar.
I'm Itchy Bear here in Canada playing the melodica.
I'm Stinky Bear here in France on the rice shaker and whistling.
So that's the project of the Adventures of Pili, and I'm gonna share and this will be the end of this presentation. The original music, the official music of the Adventures of Pili, Un Recuerdo para el Mañana, arranged by Enzo de Rosa and based on my original composition. If anybody wants to buy the song after you listen to it and you want to support us, these are the codes. So the music can be found now on Amazon Music, on Spotify, and on Apple Music. So I'm gonna share it with you, and I'm so proud of this music because it represents what I believe in and everything we have done for children around the world. And it came to my mind during the pandemic, and there were so many people that supported and made this whole project a reality. So this music really encapsulate all that I love and that passion in in that project. So if anybody has any question, feel free to comment, but enjoy this song that is very close and special to this project and to my heart. What you're listening right now is the original music of The Adventures of Billy, written by myself and arranged and elevated to this masterpiece by Enzo de Rosa. So as you can see, our books reach small towns and villages in the Amazonia, in the Orinoquia, in the deserts. They have been given to Venezuelan refugees walking across Colombia and descending Latin America by foot. It's a very, very special project and very close to my heart. So you've seen The Adventures of Billy, my project of love. And if anybody feels from the bottom of their heart they want to support us in any way, we're tax deductible under the Safina Foundation. The QR code on top over there will take you to the donation page. Just make sure that you choose the Adventures of Pili. The one on top of me will take you to the website where you can see all the books that I've written and Walter Carthon has illustrated, and a whole bunch of people have made possible. And on the one on this side, it's a QR code that can take you to Amazon so you can get those books. And now we're just getting to an end. I don't know how long I've spoken for, almost 2 hours. My God, you see, now you understand that I'm a Spaniard, right? Now you believe me that my upbringing and education is completely a Spaniard. So I just want to thank you, the San Diego Coastal Rotary Club, for this opportunity, for inviting me to share some of my work and my creative experiences around the world. I don't know if somebody has any questions. You can write them on the chat, and I will address them. There's a delay, but I've gone for almost 2 hours. I'm amazed of myself. That's why I had to change so many batteries. I kept on running out of batteries. But I think this live presentation has given us the opportunity to connect. You have discovered some of uh, Amelie. Thank you so much for your feedback. I'm extremely happy that you like what I do, and the story behind my career with ups and downs, but always using love and creativity as the cornerstone of everything that I have done. I'm so excited to see familiar faces, non-familiar faces, people that have traveled with me in the past, and um, every time you guys buy a book or donate or whatever you do in connection to all my activities, you're supporting my career, that it has turned into something devoted to helping others. I'm obsessed with the idea of inspiring children and future generations to value and preserve our planet. And that's what I do when I work for National Geographic Expeditions and Lindblad, inspiring um, travelers. It's been an absolute joy to be present. I'm completely surprised and amazed by technology and the possibility to share all this content live, answer your questions, address your doubts, and being able to share so many things. So before I go, I just want to say that subscribe to this humble YouTube channel. We have surpassed 1 million views already. The channel is bilingual. Sometimes I go live in Spanish with great interviews. Other times I use this wonderful accent given by my origins to address an audience, but always happy and excited uh, to share. Jenny, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I know I'll see you soon at the beginning of the year in one of my expeditions, and it's my pleasure. I'm going to share a little secret here. This is the first live I've done in English. I've done lots of presentations, but this is the first time that I have removed a veil covering myself and talk about my career, my father's death, how it changed my family, my life, and my work, um, and brought me to this point in life and my career. So I think that's what I had for today. I don't know if there's any additional questions here in the chat. If I don't see any questions in the next few minutes, I will disconnect. But it's been such a joy. Let me see if I have one more slideshow that I can. Actually, I have one more. I have an extra slideshow for you guys, for all the patience and the love and the wonderful comments that you have left. So these are random photographs across the world with a story behind each photograph. Even the landing of the US Airways plane that Captain Sully landed in the Hudson River, I was able to photograph it live by destiny or luck, if you want to say it that way. So this is a final slide. So here. That is the US Airways plane in the Hudson River. That's a small pellet in the eye of an owl. That's a duck hunting a deer inside a national park in Cuba for food when there was no food around. A story dedicated to my grandmother, born in Andalusia. A story on shark feeding in Hong Kong. I learned how to sail at the Manhattan Sailing Club in New York, and I ended up with some stories about that place. I fell in love with sailing and the ocean. So many stories and so many moments. Some events, courses, completed in Spain, dedicated to my grandmother. Let's go by. That's Salma Hayek. So that's all for today, my friends. Thank you so much for listening to almost 2 hours of presentation. I'm absolutely humbled uh, by this opportunity. Nick, thank you so much for your feedback. I do everything that I do with my heart. It's the driving force of my career, and I appreciate your comment, and I appreciate Jenny's interaction to make this presentation happen, and for this opportunity. So with this, as I always say, never stop dreaming, and I hope to see you down the road.